Okay, let's bring up our program speaker for today, Wyatt Earp. We know the Earp family was here in Wrightwood down in Lone Pine Canyon, and Walter Feller will tell us about Wyatt Earp in the Mojave Desert and the San Bernardino area. So let's give Walter a big hand. If you want to put it in here.
Yeah. So I can talk with my hands.
Yeah, well, I like
Oh, wait. My wife told me to do this. She says everybody's, if I do this at first, there seems to be more people in the room. And everybody looks happier when I finish. So,
Walter is also the president of the Mojave Historical Society over in Apple Valley. And
purely volunteer.
aren't we all?
Oh, boy. It's been like 10 months since I've done this presentation, so I hope I remember all the words. Here, let me go a little further here, buddy.
Yeah,
Okay, first,
do you need somebody to push the button for you? Would that be better?
I can do this.
Oh, okay, you're
I can talk with one hand.
okay.
Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It shouldn't be too bad. Boy, I was looking at all this other stuff when I got here about Wyatt Earp, and I'm not an expert, and I'm just loosely related to the facts, I guess. My concern was a few years ago, every year I go to the Desert Symposium out at Isaacs. And the people that run the symposium, they kind of give me a tip off. I'm the only non-scientist there. I like doing photography, so they set me up with what the theme for this year is going to be. And last year it was the Colorado River out by Parker, Arizona, and so Mr. Reynolds, the coordinator, he asked me to do a presentation on Wyatt Earp, like in Mojave, which I had no idea he was actually in the Mojave. I had heard he lived out in San Diego, and of course the thing about Virgil and the Clyde Ranch. So that's where I'm coming from on here, and what I did was just start putting together things. Here's photos of Wyatt at various stages in his life, from 6 years old all the way up to right, I guess, a few months before he passed away, or maybe a couple of years. It was pretty good there. And it's cool, you can kind of tell it's the same person. It's not like me, I was really smooth when I was a kid. So now, first I do need to kind of go through a little bit of background to let you know what I'm ignoring. He was born in March 1848, and he was a lawman, gambler, and entrepreneur, we'll call it. He was first and foremost known for the OK Corral, and which is both, it wasn't a corral, it wasn't okay. And I'm not real sure what that was all about anyhow. But anyhow, both before and after that date, Earp moved from town to town across the west, earning his living as a saloon keeper, gunslinger, gambler, miner, and frontier lawman. I guess that's covered by entrepreneur. And I guess he really liked the desert from what I can see. You know, it wasn't just the Tombstone area. He spent a lot more time in there at different periods during his life. Here he is with his mother. I hate to think he takes after the father. I don't see any resemblance there. And I didn't realize all the black and white photos. I never realized he had red hair. Now, that means absolutely nothing other than he had red hair. But I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. In his early years, he was born in Monmouth, Illinois. They moved to Pella, Iowa, and from there they started up. There was a small wagon train, the Rousseau family. There was I can't think of the other, there are two other families, and then the Earp family. And Nicholas Earp, the father, he was in charge of the wagon train, or he was a wagon master. And they went from, in 1864, they moved from Pella, Iowa, down to San Bernardino, California. And the shaded area over there where it says San Bernardino, that's pretty much the outline of the Mojave Desert. Here's the father. I guess he looks a little bit more like that. But on the wagon train out, Wyatt would hunt rabbits for food, and he helped protect the travelers from Indians. I guess there was a gunfight with Indians along the way, but that was somewhere east of the Mojave, so I really don't care. But it introduced him to the way the West was. Nick was rather edgy. He was very insistent. He was very, I guess, I don't know, self-centered, very controlling. And he would warn people that if they didn't do what he'd say, he would leave them out in the desert. He didn't care. So it was, you know, he had one, there was one incident where he broke a wagon wheel, and everybody went ahead of him, and that's when he made his case for, if you want to get left, do that again. Now, there, yeah, here is just what I said. Now, what he did do, this is Bitter Springs out at Fort Irwin. Has anybody ever been out there?
Fort Irwin, yeah.
The other guy.
Us too.
But anyhow, yeah, this is Bitter Springs, and this was a big stop. The water tasted horrible. The springs were bitter. You look at the water, it was like copper color, it looked terrible. And he did leave some people out there. What they did was, it was this big thing with Sarah Jane Rousseau, who was in the wagon train. They were also going to San Bernardino. Well, they had problems. One of their horses died. She blamed it on Nick and the other people in the wagon train, and they said, well, they couldn't help her. She would have to wait for help. And then the next day they felt bad and said, well, you can ride with us. And she goes, no, I'd rather wait, take my chances. And that was with her husband was sick or something like that. But he did leave some people out in the desert. Oh, wrong one. And they came across on the old Spanish Trail, which I don't know, is there anybody that's a member of the old Spanish Trail or into that? The old Spanish Trail was, it was not Spanish, it was not old, and it wasn't a trail. It's more like a corridor, and that's what you can relate it today. The 15 freeway does the same thing as the old Spanish Trail, or the combination of trails. As people, when we do trails, we braid trails. We're always looking for a shortcut. Maybe the weather will wash something out, and you have to go around. Well, that becomes the new trail, and so on. I'm sure you've seen that happen up here. But this is basically where the old Spanish Trail went across. And then out by south of Bitter Springs, there's this place, it's Impassable Pass. And apparently, look, it's kind of cute, they made a little cut up there. I suppose that saved them a lot of grief. And then what they do is at the bottom of this thing, you can see these huge fire rings. And what they would do is these wagon trains, some of the bigger ones, and the freighters and stuff, they get so long that they would start a bonfire so that the wagons that were way behind, miles behind, would know where they were heading at night. So they'd have this big bonfire as a beacon. Okay, San Bernardino in 1864 and San Bernardino in 2015. The one in 2015 is the one with the cars. And that's also taken from Monument Peak, which is a really cool place, which is a whole other tragedy because I got 2 flat tires up there. I just got this photo from Jim Moostrug with the Mojave Historical Society. I had a picture of the little building out front. I never got around to either trespassing or asking for permission to do this cabin, which I guess is no longer with us. And let's see, Virgil would bring young Wyatt to this ranch, and they would hunt deer together with Virgil's friend Almond Clyde. So now Wyatt, he was 16 when they came out, and it wasn't long before he ran away. And apparently what he did was he became a freighter, and he would run freight wagons to like Salt Lake City and Julesburg, Colorado or something like that. Anyhow, that was what his experience was. Now I read in another one of these books, researching this, is that his dad said he ran away from home and his dad went looking for him. And caught up with him eventually in Lamar, Iowa, or Missouri. And Nick, what he did was he got a job, he was like sheriff there or something like that. Well, he got angry and quit. And Wyatt took up the job, and that was his first job as a lawman, which could be really profitable back then. Because they didn't pay him. What they did was they corrupted them, I guess. You could pay them off, you could give the sheriff protection money. And that was how they didn't get like a salary. They didn't get anything from a tax base or any of that. It's like if you wanted protection, well then chip in. So it was kind of a legalized extortion or something like that.
I wonder where the mobsters got that idea.
Probably from Wyatt Earp. And well, you know, that's what they did. They would gamble, and they would usually have, say, not like your saloon, the saloon owner would give them a cut in the business, just like, you know, Brian Dennehy. And, you know, that's how they'd make their money too, is they'd get part of the profits. And then, of course, they'd have the ladies of the evening up there, and they'd get a cut out of that. And then anything that went on in town, that was there for the lawman. I imagine you just wouldn't want to make it too rough on them. Okay, a few words about a few wives. First was Urilla, which I think had the coolest haircut. Looks kind of like a little lampshade, sort of, you know. But she, right after they got married, she contracted typhoid fever and passed away. And they lost the baby too, with that, of course. And then there was Mattie Blaylock, who after Tombstone, she moved to San Bernardino and lived with the Earp family there. They really liked her. But I guess she ended up getting into drug addiction. And she died an early death from that, from what I read. Then there's Josephine, Josie Sadie, I guess Wyatt called her. And she never officially married to Wyatt, but she did take his name, and there's been speculation that Josie had been the heart of the gunfighting and killing that began at Tombstone. See, so this is all
Wyatt's full name is,
Wyatt Stapp Earp.
isn't there another name in there? Stapp something?
I don't know.
You have it.
I'm allowed not to remember everything anymore.
What, Barry
Barry,
Stapp.
yeah, I knew that.
Wyatt Barry Stapp Earp.
Did it say Saloma?
Now what?
The name on that photograph, is it Saloma?
Yeah, I have no idea why.
Well, there's a Saloma out in Mojave.
Oh, there is?
Yeah.
Wow.
So maybe,
Where at?
maybe it's not
Where's
her.
it near? Any idea, or you just,
No, there is one, but I don't know exactly where it is.
oh, okay, I'll find out. Now that you said that. You'll have to wait till like another 10 months. Okay, the gunfight at OK Corral, everybody knows a lot more than me about these things. But I do know that he wanted people to forget all that stuff, so I'm not gonna pay any more attention to that. But what would Wyatt do? And which Wyatt would do it? So when he left Tombstone, according to, and did some killing and revengeful stuff and all this other thing, He told Josie or Sadie or whatever that he loved her and he had no future, obviously, being a lawman and a gambler and a pimp and other miscellaneous things that worked out back then. So anyhow, she said, don't worry about it, Wyatt, my family's rich. And that kind of did them a little bit of good. They weren't rich, so apparently that was all Hollywood. And her money from oil wells that was in her family, that kind of petered out after 20 years or so. He was trying to hide from all the killing, and he didn't want to hear it anymore. He just wanted to be done with it. So they went up to Alaska, and they were up there for 4 or 5 years. There were other places that he moved. There was some time in Colorado, Idaho, I believe. But they ended up in Alaska, and then they came back to Tonopah, where Virgil was. Yeah, I think Virgil was probably his favorite brother, because they seemed to have be close all the way through his life, or their lives. And Virgil was in Tonopah, Nevada, which is on the very outside edge of the Mojave. And he had $80,000 that he brought from Alaska. Sadie and Wyatt tried life in Tonopah, and Virgil already had business going there. And Tonopah, let's see, I think he did some law enforcement. He started running what was called the Northern Saloon. And then after a few years, when things down in Goldfield, a little bit south of Tonopah, yeah, there it is. Oh, that's the Tonopah Mining Museum. Cool place. Anyhow, at the Northern, they featured things as wines, liquors, and cigars, and only the choicest of those. Yeah, he spent some time as a deputy marshal, which that got him more into some of the things he was accustomed to doing. Then he was hired to manage a private police force to run off claim jumpers, which apparently that was a big deal back then. A lot of things were, a lot of claims were being jumped. And anyhow, when you're in Tonopah, you can't miss the Mizpah. And that's it, if you can't tell. And I guess it's a really nice hotel. Obviously I've been outside of it, I didn't go in. I guess you get tours and everything, so I missed out on that. And I thought, you have Ivanpah, you have Tonopah, which Tonopah hot water, Ivanpah poison water, Pahrump is Water Hill. And you would think that these are all Paiute words. Paiute, get it? Anyhow, you think it's Paiute for that, but it's not. It's biblical. And it's from, it means watchtower. Yeah. Here's Goldfield. And he took his saloon business down there. And this is Tex Rickard's place in Goldfield, Nevada. Now when I took this picture, I had no idea what it was. And then I came home and I found out, oh, it's Tex Rickard's place. And then I thought, oh, well, who was Tex Rickard? Other than the architect, which looks kind of crazy, but then I found out, no, Tex was a pretty good friend of Wyatt Earp's. And he went on to become a fight promoter and built Madison Square Garden. So I guess that's where that came from, instead of Madison. Now, Daggett, they have their claim to Wyatt Earp too. They had looked in some of the old registration and they couldn't find his name or anything there, but they think this is where he met a gentleman named Death Valley Scotty, who was notorious as a liar, con man,
Storyteller.
thief, storyteller, jokester.
Yeah.
Anyhow, there used to be a second floor on here and a large glass dome above the two-story lobby. And I guess it showed there was a beacon that was lit up there so people could see where Daggett was at night. He didn't want to be flying through it on accident in your horse and buggy. So now here's Death Valley Scotty, who is probably a little bit younger than Wyatt Earp. And this guy, he caused trouble all over. They went and the idea was for them to play poker. No, I didn't. Okay, they're operating a game called Bunko. Now, I wondered, Bunko, I have heard about that. I remember Dragnet, yeah, Bunko Squad and all this other stuff. And you think, well, that's not good. And then I was telling somebody about this at this Mexican restaurant I go to, and she said, well, Bunko is, it's a good thing. They play it, she plays it out in Vegas all the time. And it's like, oh, well, I don't do the gambling thing, I don't know. And I thought, well, I guess it's okay. But anyhow, here I'm finding out now, the plan was to, through, I guess playing Bunko, was to defraud a victim of $4,000. Scotty, a couple others, and Wyatt, they think, was to play poker and let this guy bet a lot, and then they're gonna grab all the money off the table and run out of the room. Probably guns blazing up in the air, hopefully they didn't kill anybody. Well, they got caught, they got arrested, and yeah, it says right there, I don't understand why my friend lets to play that. But anyhow, that's what they did, they got arrested, and Wyatt stabbed Barry Earp. He gave his name as Wyatt Stapp. Walter Scott, that was his name. Yeah, Walter Scott, how weird. He gave his real name. But they can't tell by Mr. Scott if it really was Death Valley Scotty. But he was always up for a swindle. So anyhow, that was the thing of Bunko. I'm still not gonna play it. But I don't do anything in Vegas other than ride through.
And then Death Valley Scotty was also synonymous with Scotty's Castle in Death Valley.
Yeah, which was actually Mr. Johnson's castle. I can't remember his first name. Something begins with A, probably. But anyhow, yeah, so these guys, and this is one thing I found out, like, these guys all knew each other. Death Valley Scotty actually knew a gentleman named Bill Keys, who is a big deal out in Joshua Tree National Park. He was one of the homesteaders out there, and he built a big ranch. And Bill Keys was up in Skidoo, which is in between Goldfield and Trona there in Death Valley, and that's where they hanged the guy twice. Apparently it was a double murder. So, now one of the really cool things, once I got out into the area, because of course if I'm going to give a talk about him in the Mojave, I want to go to one of the main place where he was in the Mojave.
Sorry, guys.
Didn't Death Valley Scotty drive a steam car?
Doing what?
Didn't he drive a steam car?
Stanley Steamer.
Stanley steamer?
Probably.
I understand he'd get around with that.
Yeah, well, he preferred a mule because he said horses were stupid. And they were lazy and they couldn't stand up like a mule. And
More shine on there.
yeah.
Some do, some don't.
Anyhow, that was one of the things I had read somewhere, or made it up probably, that he was in Iowa, and they have all them cornfields there, and he was out riding his horse one day, and he missed his mules, because they use those a lot back there too. But he's riding a horse. He says, stupid horse. It wasn't as fast. It didn't last as long and everything. And he's riding by this cornfield, and it's really hot. It was a terrible day. And all of a sudden, the corn started popping. And the stupid horse thought it was snow and froze to death.
Sounds like a Death Valley Scotty story.
I don't know. I wasn't there. Who am I to doubt, such a nefarious creature? I found out, has anybody ever heard of Vidal or Vidal Junction? Vidal?
Vidal.
Vidal? Yeah, I read this stuff in books and I have no idea how to
It's out
pronounce it.
by, near Palm Springs, past on the 10 going east.
Yeah, kind of. It's
way out
it's
there.
where this map says Rose. Isn't that a prettier name though than the Vidal Junction? I just thought Rose was so cool. Well, anyhow, apparently Wyatt was gonna go visit a friend, and he come down the old National Trails Highway when because Wyatt bought a car and he really liked it. It's nice and shiny new, and he's gonna drive it through the desert to go see his buddy. I don't remember the name, it's probably irrelevant anyhow. But anyhow, they go out the old National Trails Highway, they go to Needles, then they start going down the skinny road, which can only be pretty much, was it 95?
95, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say it's 95 from here. And while they're driving along, all of a sudden a bull jumps out in front of them. And it's a big surprise, and they can't stop in time, and they run into the bull, plus the bull the bull charges them and scared Sadie, so it messed up the car, and Wyatt pulls out his gun and shoots it in the head before it can get to Sadie, or Josie, or, anyway, so what happened is all of a sudden a guy shows up saying, well, that was a $500 bull you just killed. And the guy goes, and Wyatt said, no, it's a $5 bull, $5 bull. And I'll give you that much for it because it attacked me. And said, well, no, that's a champion. You know, that's gotta be $500. And he said, well, you know, I just as soon kill you for the money. And the guys, and then they start talking about, well, you know, I'm going out to see, you know, Jack, whatever it is, his friend. And he goes, oh, that's my boss. And he goes, ah, and they all laugh, and they go, and then the guy only gets $5 for the bull. You know, because it was, that was his boss. And that was a kind of a pointless story, but I thought, this is the bull out at Elmer's Bottle Farm on the way to Hellendale, if you've ever seen that menagerie of
Stuff.
yeah, stuff, and it's cool stuff too, that's cool. But anyhow, I chose that bull picture, and apparently, here's Vidal Junction, the Twin Cities. I came up with that when I was out there sitting in this parking lot across from their commercial district.
Smaller than Wrightwood.
Well, yeah, you know, yeah, upper story parking there too, so. Now, you go down the road a little bit and there's Vidal.
VID.
So anyhow, what he did out there was eventually they found a place. They moved out there in winters. They would go out there and he would mine for gold. He liked mining. That was one of the many things that he did. They moved out there. They made a camp. You know, and they left some things out there so they could go to it. And it was kind of a home away from home, if you consider LA his home. That's where he'd go. He'd stay with friends in the summer when it's too hot out here. Here's another historic photo of their camp. Their dog's in there again, if you look way over on the right. Apparently the dog had to be with whoever was furthest away. I think he's right there. Yeah, he's right there too, begging for bologna. So anyhow, Vidal Junction, their mine was right up in here. And I didn't go there, that's why I got the historic photos. I was by myself, and if something happened, I didn't want to be by myself, so I figured I'll just use the historic photos for that part of it. It's really hot out there. And this was in last March I went out. Here's the cabin he lived in for 3 years. This was the only place he ever bought. It's really a cool cabin. I don't know if it's owned by the Clampers now. I know it's privately owned. I don't think anybody's living in there though, unless it's a caretaker. Excuse me?
That was in Vidal. I see it.
Yeah, that's down the road. if you go down, further down that skinny road past Rose. Now, the thing I found out about Vidal is that it is not what it used to be. You're another commercial district. It's a good thing, but this was, the other claim to fame besides Wyatt Earp and his wife living there was, this was, you go even a little bit further down the road past this, and it's where they kept the boy in the box. And it was, what that was I believe it was in the 50s or early 60s, that they had discovered that this boy had been kept in a packing crate at this private lodge or whatever like that for 60 days. And they went out there and they arrested everybody. They got the kid and all this other stuff. Well, they get back, and apparently it wasn't 60 days that he was kept in the box. It was only like 3 days. And then they decided just to drop all charges because apparently that was more okay. So everybody got away with it, and I didn't hear anything more about the story. There's never any closure in life, or at least not to the stuff you would think there would be. See, so now he's traveled, he's San Bernardino, which was kind of the family's base of operations. There was Daggett, out by Parker, Arizona, Tonopah Goldfield, and then his little bunco thing down in LA, which I won't put that on my map. And then the thing's called the Potash Wars in 1910. And what they did was they hired Wyatt, the notorious lawman, to go out and take 24 armed men. They called a group of surveyors, and what they were doing was they went out there to jump claims, or to be ready to jump claims as soon as the previous one expired. And it turned into a big deal. He got arrested again, and of course he gave only part of his name. Apparently he was saving Barry Earp for later, because he used Wyatt's staff again. I would have used like Wyatt Berry, that sounds cool.
Was that out towards Corona, the potash?
Yeah, and I was gonna say, this is the stuff we see in the commercials and in films and all this other happy stuff. See, so this may look more alien, but it may look more familiar. But Trona is just up the road, and if you drive up there, you'll smell all these chemicals from their, it's like the American Trona Company or something like that, and what they're cleaning lines, and I've heard, you know, you ask the people out there, you know, why does it smell like that? And they say, well, that's the smell of money. And actually, there are people who really like it out there. I was real surprised, pleasantly surprised, you know, to find, you know, people felt as deeply as they do about their community. Like here, but out on a dry lake. Now, Josie, she was actually the gambler, according to one of my sources. This was insinuated by people they're staying with, and they said they tried to make sure Wyatt got fed right, because he was getting older. They spent more time in Los Angeles with friends. They stayed at the upstairs in the top of this apartment, or, you know, above their house, and they'd catch her coming down and sneaking food out of the refrigerator. And what it was mostly hot dogs that she fixed for him. She'd, I'm making Wyatt a little something, and she'd be down there stealing hot dogs, and I guess relish or mustard. And if they had buns back then, that surprised me, because I was thinking about, well, did they have hot dog buns back then? And also, I didn't know they had hot dogs. Now, this is back in the early 1900s still. And I found out that, no, in the late 1800s, there was a whole bunch of people that came from Germany. I think it was some type of recession or a depression back there. And they came out, and these are my people. They had ways of processing the meat that nobody else wanted off of livestock. So what they did was they started making sausages and hot dogs. And that's, so we have, I don't know when the buns came. But anyhow, yeah, the landlord said they didn't really feel that she was taking good care of him. During the last years of his life, he became infatuated with Hollywood's portrayal, and his legacy, his part in it. He finally got the recognition he wanted, but it was after he passed away in 1929. The Earp story was remade from 1931, Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal, by biographer Stuart Lake. I think I have that book. That was one of the ones I looked in. Also, Nicholas Cataldo.
Yes.
Yeah, he is like, he's the expert. He knows his subject. He knows this and that and all these other things. So anyhow, yeah, after he passed away, you'll notice on the map there by Parker, there's a little town called Earp. And previously that was known as Drennan. Well, never missing an opportunity for a desert community to promote themselves, they named the Drennan Earp in his honor. And Sadie, the little one-legged lady on the right, was with her friend, the one-legged lady on the left. And they came out, and that's Sadie on the right, and her friend, and they're standing in front of the Earp sign, which I should have went and took a picture of while I was standing there, but I didn't. And I didn't take a picture of the front of the post office. I would have thought I would have. And now this is these guys were in Hesperia, and they were looking through an antique shop, and they found a photo album with a lot of the Earp family photos. They, pictures of his 3 wives. These 2 guys, they figured they found probably, what was it? I thought they were saying that this photo album could have been worth $50,000. They bought it for $50. I don't know, it's probably worth more than that. But they were very fortunate. Now, this is a picture of my cousin. This is Bob Feller. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. Okay, one person. But anyhow, he's a Hall of Fame pitcher. And he was the first pitcher that threw a ball over 100 mile an hour. And he's in the Hall of Fame. He's my grandfather's first cousin. And I put that up. What I did, and I'm kind of bragging a little bit. I heard that there was one of Wyatt Earp's great nephews that lived and worked in Hesperia. And so I found out where this place was, and I went down, and it was a little store. And they said, well, no, he's not here today. I was thinking, well, I'll go and talk to him. And it was the last possible day, because I didn't want to bother anybody, with, do you have a picture, or, standing in a pet supply place, being any more lame than I am. Anyhow, so I got there, and no, the gentleman wasn't there that day. Well, this girl at the counter, she goes, well, you can talk to his wife. And I go, yeah, I'll do. Maybe I'll get some background or something like that. And, I didn't feel so awkward or anything. I put my camera back in my pocket. And I was talking to this girl, and we talked for like 20 minutes, and then finally his wife came back up, and all of a sudden she looks over, and she was fascinating. I was telling her some of the story and everything like that, this little girl, and then all of a sudden she turns around and she goes, Mom, this gentleman wants to talk to you. And it's like, oh, cool. I was just talking to a blood relative of Wyatt Earp, and she had that kind of shape of face. And it was very cool. And I thought, well, I'll just take that with me. She was about 16. I wasn't going to bother her for no photo or any of that stuff. And I thought, well, that's a good one for me. At least I met her. I didn't get a chance to meet Mr. Earp himself. So I figured, well, this is probably way more polite. It's nowhere near as interesting. But I'll show pictures of my cousin and say that's why I'm showing pictures of my cousin, because I didn't get pictures of an actual living Earp. and that is the end. Now, I moved this photo to the end. No, it's not Wyatt Earp, but he has a Hugh O'Brien hat. And when I was a kid, I really liked Wyatt Earp, Kit Carson, Davy Crockett. I really liked these guys. Kit Carson disappeared. It wasn't until maybe 15 years ago I found out he came to California. Hugh O'Brien and this guy had the same kind of hat. So one year I was asked, I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I asked what I wanted for Christmas. I said a Zorro outfit, because it was like 2 in 1. I had the Wyatt Earp hat, and I had a sword with chalk, and a cape, which I don't know why those went out of style. And with the chalk, I could go around the house, all over the house, the garage, and write Z's all over. So anyhow, that's why I chose this photo for the end. And that makes no sense either. I'm really sorry. And that's the end of it. Any questions?
I understand from Los Angeles, Wyatt moved to San Diego and opened a hotel and bar there, and then moved to San Francisco. Is that where he passed away?
No, it was in LA
It was
that I
in
had
Los
heard he
Angeles.
passed away.
Absolutely.
No, what happened down
He's
there,
buried
I
in
believe,
San
was that he was mixed up in the fight scene. And they figured
Boxing?
he was a referee down in San Diego, and they figured he fixed a fight or something like that. And it didn't work out. I figured, well, that's why him and Tex Rickard got along so well. But yeah, he didn't, after that thing down in San Diego, he wasn't there that much longer after that, I think,
Yeah, I heard it didn't last long.
so.
He's buried in a cemetery up in, the city right below San Francisco, where they moved all the graves and everything. There's a whole city south of San Francisco, because that.
Like Lima or something?
It's not Colton, because Colton's here and he has so many ties to Colton. But I forget what the name of it is, but the whole city is cemeteries. And he's buried in a Jewish cemetery there. I've been to the grave, and so that's where he's buried, is in a Jewish cemetery down below, south of San Francisco. And Virgil's house, is still standing in Colton. I've got a picture of that. You can take. You don't want to disturb the residents, but when he was sheriff of Colton, when he was coming up here with Virgil and stuff, that house is still standing. And then Mark, the fellow who was his brother who was killed at the OK Corral, he was in 2 cemeteries in Colton, and one they ended up moving. It was a cemetery. They ended up moving his body because they wanted to use the rocks and everything that was at the cemetery. So I've got pictures of him, that too, the historical cemetery over in Colton. So he's there, and they do a really good job of keeping up that grave. And I've talked to, as I said, also the keepers up at besides being there, talked to the cemetery keepers up in San Francisco.
Isn't the one in Colton, the Algomonza?
Pardon me?
Algomonza Cemetery?
No, it's not Aguamanza. Boy, is that a story. I've got like 100 pictures of that one. That one's really weird if you've been in that one. That's the one that was washed out in the flood, and but it's still standing. Aguamanza, that's in Colton also, but this one is the I'd have to look up in my records, but it's very easy access in Colton, and they do a really good job of keeping it up and everything. But it's and he was in La Paz. They have I'm sure many of you have seen the plaque going out through San Mateo Canyon, because he was he rode on the stage out to La Paz in Arizona. He was the shotgun person. And so they have a plaque outside of one of the places as you're going through San Mateo Canyon West in Redlands, honoring the road to La Paz and his route. So And there's a lot of history with, because his parents are actually buried in the San Bernardino, the historical cemetery in San Bernardino.
Yeah, Highland and Waterman.
Pardon me?
Highland and Waterman.
Yeah, the really old one, wherever, because
Are there any more questions? Excuse me.
that's where his parents are buried.
Any other questions of Walter? All right, let's give him a big hand.